Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. In this edition, I'm speaking with Jim Farnsworth. Jim is truly a legend in the field of customer experience. Currently, he's based in Denver and is an executive vice president with Sykes and part of their executive management team. He heads up the SykesHOME virtual contact center solution, which is the Sykes product for a contact center with work-at-home agents. Jim's been a senior executive of several of the biggest CX specialists in the world, and he built up his own company in this industry and sold it too. He really has seen all there is to see in the CX business. In our conversation, I asked Jim about his present focus on building contact centers with agents working from home. Okay, so let's go straight to the interview. Work at home is seeing a lot of new interest recently. Are there any specific reasons for this wave of renewed interest in it?
Mark, I think there's a couple of reasons. Labor markets are tight around the globe right now, and especially so in large industrialized economies. The U.S. in particular, Canada to a lesser extent, but also throughout Europe. And when you have a tight labor market, work at home becomes a very attractive option because you are no longer subject to the limitations of a particular geographic area. So it becomes more popular. The other reason I think is that you work at home is no longer a novelty in many markets and in many industries. And so you've seen success across the US, you've seen success starting in Europe. And at this point, I think that success is leading to industry to be a lot more receptive to it.
Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of people talking about the ability to widen the net on skills when you're recruiting. I mean, it might seem obvious, but can you explain how that works?
Sure. The fact, again, as I mentioned before, that you have the unlimited geography to choose from really is where you can get the advantage of the skill set, because you can recruit to a targeted set of skills if you need to, or even a targeted set of credentials such as Series 6 licenses for stock brokerage or insurance licensed, or people who might have a particular set of skills or certifications in the medical field. And so really that ability to widen your talent pool comes again because you can cast the net across a wide geography and take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. And if you have people working on the contact center but working from their own home, how do you handle the security risk of that? I mean, can you really have agents at home processing credit card transactions, for example?
Yeah, let me start with credit card transactions, and then I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about the general security. Credit card transactions, for the most part, are now in a work-at-home environment, are often being handled by secure applications that interface between the agent and the caller. So, for example, in my company, we have a product that we can overlay into the system, and instead of giving the credit card information to an agent directly, you can do it in a third party type app where you can either key it in or you can record it securely where there's no human intervention, and it's all machine recorded. So a lot of times the work at home space is using that. But security in general is quite strong in work at home because almost every system, including the one in my company, leaves digital fingerprints on every single thing that the agent does. And so the system, between the system security and the applications, like I just mentioned, you're seeing a lot of financial institutions and insurance agencies, and even healthcare for both HIPAA and PCI information being handled with work-at-home agents very securely. The last thing that I would say is, and it's really one of the first things that I talk about with customers and prospects with work-at-home, is, again, when you have that ability to go with a large labor pool, you can be very selective. You can put these agents through a deeper vetting process, and you can put more security credentials in place to hire them in the first place. And I think between systems, the fact that they're always being monitored, and overlays, you've got a really compelling security proposition to offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in fact, it sounds even more secure than some of the old contact centers.
I've found, I've been doing work at home, Mark, for 15, 16 years now, and I've done it all over the world. And one of the things that I think is very interesting is that the rates of fraud that you have in contact centers with home agents is dramatically lower than it is in bricks and mortar. And I attribute that, again, to that ability to be so selective.
Hmm. Okay. And final question then. When you're setting up a work-at-home strategy, would you normally create a base inside an office? So you'd have a pool of people working within a bricks and mortar office contact center, and then you can flex and grow or shrink the team as needed using the work-at-home agents? Or can you just 100% work at home?
I'm an advocate of doing 100% work at home. I've done it both ways. I've advised companies on doing it both ways. But the one thing I think people forget when you do this hub and spoke type model or a telecommuting model is that the skill set that is best to get the value and the ROI from a work at home capability is a very unique skill set that comes when you have people that are dedicated and working from home. And so it's not just as simple as you give them a computer and a login and send them home, kind of like you might do with people like you and I who travel around the world and work. When you're in a full production environment, day in and day out, from my point of view, it is always better to build all of your processes virtually because you get the best of your people, the best of the value from the processes, and you are capitalizing again on that labor pool that really wants to work from home and has the skills and capabilities to do so. In my view, you water that down a little bit when you do the telecommuting or the hub and spoke model, simply because you're asking some people who might be better at working in a building to work from home and vice versa. And you're really kind of creating a hybrid model that's not as effective in my view.
Is it a different kind of person then, basically, who is prepared to work at home?
It absolutely is a different kind of person. And what we find is when you have those processes that do everything virtually, especially from the outset with the hiring process, you really take advantage of people who can not just survive working from home, but thrive working from home. And that's really the trick. I think when you try and get people to flex back and forth, you tend to find survivors rather than thrivers. And really the object is to go for the ones that can really, really thrive at home.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. Please tell your friends and contacts about the podcast by sharing it using the hashtag #CXFiles. And if you can leave a comment and rating on iTunes, that would be fantastic. Thank you in advance. I'm always open to ideas and suggestions, so if you want topics explored or covered on the podcast, you can find me using @MarkHillary on Twitter. That's Hillary with 2 L's. Or just search LinkedIn for Mark Hillary and CX Files. Thank you and see you next time.